Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Science of SaaS Startups podcast. Today, I'm talking to Lior Yaari. Lior is the CEO and founder of Grip.security. And Grip.security is a seed-funded SaaS security management solution backed by Wild Ventures. Lior, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Ben.
No problem. So I just want to kick off with a few quick questions just to help the audience get to know you a little bit. So what did you say as a kid when you were asked, what do you want to be when you grow up?
I wanted to be an animal trainer for a long time, but for at least 6 years until I was 8. And then I had a long time thinking about what I want to do until eventually signing up for theater in high school.
Okay.
And I had 2 months during my summer where I learned how to write code. And by the end of those 2 months, I've changed my whole career path from theater and physics to computer science. And since then, cybersecurity, and now our own company doing cybersecurity as well.
So you were kind of hooked in at that point. What age was that when you learned to code?
15.
15. Okay. And what were the animals that you wanted to train when you were younger?
Well, the scary ones.
Lions and tigers.
The bigger, the better. Yeah, lions and tigers.
Okay. So what personality traits in other people can you really not stand?
Oh, those are tough questions for the beginning of the interview.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like people who are rude. Even though there's a thin line between the rude and chutzpah in Israel. So being dominant enough. And I like people who can listen because it's the best to work. They're the best to work with.
Yeah. Okay. And in your life, what are you most grateful for right now?
I'm very grateful for a lot of things. The past 5 months since we founded the company were amazing. And I'm now at the peak of everything I ever did. And it's very exciting, but I'm grateful to many of the people who supported me. That's my girlfriend, my partner, our investors who, we didn't mention that I used to work for Wild Ventures. So 5 months ago, Ofer Schreiber, who's now a board member at Grip, was my boss. I'm grateful to him as well in the support and belief in us. And to all of my friends that helped us to grow a company, recruit engineers, and meet with interesting customers.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And if you could go back and tell your teenage self one thing, what would it be?
It's funny because I get a lot of pushback on that, but I would tell him, invest more time in writing code and less in going out. Not that the balance wasn't good, because I think I'm exactly where I wanted to be, but there was so many points in my life when I just wished I would have been better in technology and being a better technologies. And if you start younger, you just get better as you grow. So I wish I had the ability to develop myself and study that I had, 3 years later when I was 18 back then.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, hopefully everyone has got a bit more of a sense of you as a person now. So if we jump into Grip.security, so do you want to kick things off just by giving us an overview of the company and what you're trying to do?
Yeah, definitely. So Grip.security is a new SaaS security startup. We're a SaaS product that helps enterprises secure the way they use SaaS applications. The company was founded in January 2021 and is now almost 20 employees, so we're growing really fast. With a target market of large enterprises, but even though almost any company has a problem with the way it manages SaaS. And the question that comes up a lot is like, what does it mean to secure the use of SaaS? So the value proposition that we give is the ability to discover what SaaS applications are in use within any company with a very simple deployment and a very accurate solution. And then on top of that, we're providing governance capabilities for how users access the application, what devices they're allowed to access from, what users or networks they're allowed to use, and then what data is moving to the application devices. As a tagline, it's securing SaaS at enterprise scale.
Yeah, okay. And obviously over the last year, we've seen massive changes in terms of the way that the people collaborate and work. So whether it be working from home or kind of hybrid models, and that obviously has huge implications for how people are kind of accessing different applications, whether they're at home or whether they're in the office. Did you found Grip.security because of that change over the last 12 months, or was this a solution which was needed anyway, and the last year just accelerated that change?
SaaS security is not a new problem. So if you look at the SaaS security market, the companies who offer solutions for securing SaaS applications, most or all of the big players were founded between 2012 to 2014. So about 8 years ago. And since then, they grew to massive companies acquired by Microsoft, Cisco, Imperva, and others. All of them are now billion-dollar companies who are competing on this SaaS security market share. And it is clear both to investors and customers that there's a need for new technology to do that, because the SaaS security problem from 2013 is not the same as the post-COVID SaaS security problem.
Okay.
And we, as a quick background about myself, my last role was the CTO at a cybersecurity venture capital, investing in cybersecurity startups and doing the research needed to understand what are the hot topics that we as a VC should have looked for. SaaS security was the answer until eventually I moved to the other side and became an entrepreneur. And it was clear there's a need for new technology. If I quote Gartner, Gartner says in the last report from 2020, the CASB market, which is a SaaS security solution market, the CASB market haven't seen any kind of innovation in the last 2 years. Yet it is growing 40% a year, which means there's a huge opportunity and we really want to conquer it.
So how do you kind of, you were saying how the kind of challenges in SaaS security have evolved over that 8-year period. Like what are you doing differently to those companies that were founded 8 years ago?
So the way organizations used to manage the threat model of security is that they focused on the secured perimeter of the enterprise. They assumed they had control over the infrastructure or the devices used to access even external applications, and that data should have been secured within the secured perimeter. The problem with SaaS is that it breaks this model. You do not longer have this network or security choke point that enabled using tools like a VPN to control access, like a proxy to monitor data movements. And especially now where users are dispersed between different devices and networks and can actively access SaaS applications even from the private laptop back home, there's a need in change of approach. What we do is that we, unlike network-based solutions that assumed access is being done through a specific network, we tie identity as the main source of controlling access and look at how, and follow the users when they move between different devices. When I say follow the users, it means we have a technology for an enforceable access manager to SaaS that we let users install on the device, and it streamlines and automates their access to different SaaS applications while allowing us to monitor how they use the application and where they access it from. And we give that to security teams and enterprises to make sure the way SaaS is used within the organization is safe.
Okay, because within like these organizations, like the way the SaaS landscape evolves is like very fluid and dynamic, with kind of new tools being kind of added and lost kind of very regularly. So your approach, does that allow companies to kind of better meet that dynamic fluid challenge?
Exactly. There's a wonderful company in the SaaS management space called Blissfully. They have a report published every year about the trends they see with the use of SaaS with their customers, and I like to quote it just because the number of unique applications used in an average enterprise today is almost 300 unique applications, and it's growing constantly, 30% a year, year over year for the last 5 years. And when organizations use hundreds of applications, they need tools that can scale to the numbers of solutions that they need to protect.
Yeah, so I mean, as you were saying, in just 8 years, like the market's already evolved like quite a lot. I mean, you know, what do you see as the key things like over the next kind of 2, 3, 4, 5 years for this market that kind of companies really need to be aware of?
Mm-hmm. So the first trend that I think is evolving now is internal or native security within the SaaS application itself. SaaS vendors have the responsibility to add security features to their platform. There's the simple ones like access logging, SSO support, but also complex capabilities that are expected from them to be able to sell to enterprises, like API integrations to SIMs and different native capabilities. And still, we cannot assume all of the vendors will develop those features. And the way we look at how the landscape change is that the enterprise also needs to have responsibility for securing the use of applications. They cannot rely on all of the different third parties to do that for them. And as the business center shifts from the on-prem network to the cloud, we would expect more and more organizations start realizing that, and we see that as well. I don't think we need to educate the market. I think many of the customers we meet already understand that they need a solution for this.
Yeah, okay. And you mentioned that you're kind of anticipating kind of focusing on the enterprise market. Like, do you, especially in the kind of initial phase of your growth, do you try and focus on a particular vertical or two, or are you just kind of looking at a company size, a complexity? Like, how do you focus your effort and your time?
So as companies grow, they're starting to face new challenges with the way they use SaaS. So a company with 200 employees doesn't have the same challenges a company with 10,000 employees has. We eventually would offer an array of solutions that would fit different kinds of companies. And we also today, we work from companies from 200 employees to 15,000 employees. Eventually we'll go bigger. But the focus now is on the small, medium enterprises, big companies who are using a lot of different tools and need to get control or get a grip on how they use them.
And I find like that's just exploding all the time, you know, because there are so many new SaaS companies coming out every day. And, you know, even a small company like myself, you know, that tech stack is just constantly growing. So, you know, it's not a need that's going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, I can give example on what is in Grip, because we use our own tool to see how we use SaaS applications. And for a 20 people company, we use 102 different SaaS applications. Some of them are business critical, like Slack, like G Suite, and some of them are niche applications one employee uses or I use for a specific customer that I need to communicate with. But as a whole, we use hundreds of different applications. If you look at the growth graph of the number of applications that we use, every time we open a new department, like we opened our product design department 2 months ago, you can see an uptick of 12 new applications onboarded in a day. You can see the same for our marketing team, sales team. Probably when we'll open a customer support team, we'll see the same uptick of new verticals expanding our SaaS portfolio. And I can just, well, I don't need to imagine because I know, but I can imagine being a CEO of a larger company and looking at this massive portfolio and trying to get a hold of it, which is tough.
Yeah, I can imagine you'd be kind of horrified. I mean, just in your experience as a, you know, when you're working with a kind of 10,000, 15,000 people-sized company, like how many applications would they be using across the organization?
Thousands. That's the easy answer.
Yeah.
There's only so much different applications that you can use. But for business critical use cases, almost every employee is part of what we call like a sensitivity island, which is a small application used by 4, 5, 10 employees. And almost each user in the company has one of those. One of the developers could be managing the DevOps, SaaS, or the logging system, or something that has sensitive data. My best example is IT having access to the domain management SaaS, which is just amazingly sensitive. Like if someone hacks your GoDaddy or Namecheap account, the company is over. They can change the website, they can change the production environment, fish all of your customers. And as we give the visibility into it, I think a lot of security teams are either excited or worried, depending on what they were expecting to see. And they start initiating the required workflows to get a hold of that, get a grip of that.
Yeah. Okay. So if we dig in to talk about like the startup life a little bit. So as you mentioned, you kind of founded this company at the beginning of the year. You've taken on recently a $6 million seed round investment so far. And I was kind of thinking, you know, a lot of tech founders out there like have a real hard time getting investors' attention or hitting certain milestones before they're investable. And I feel like you've had a little bit of a shortcut to some of that process because, you know, you mentioned previously you worked at Lior Ventures as their CTO, and then you kind of jumped out to set up Grip.security. Can you just explain a little bit about like that process and how that happened and when you kind of saw this opportunity?
Yeah, definitely. And even though our investment round wasn't usual, I don't think the reason it was a shortcut is because we had the personal connections with the VC. I don't think that's the key. The reason we had a fast, precise round was because the validation with the idea was very deep. I personally talked with hundreds of CISOs, over 100 CISOs about the SaaS security problem before even thinking about a technology or a solution to solve it. And then after we came up with the solution, we leveraged the VC network to validate the idea with dozens of CISOs before getting a term sheet or even trying to raise money. So the personal connections allowed us to get those introductions to security leaders in the US market, which then allowed us to validate the idea and make sure that the solution is accurate. But the process itself was very interesting. And I think my recommendations for entrepreneurs is to make sure that the problem is real. And the only way you can do that is talking to customers, and also make sure and really understand if your technology is the best fit to solve the problem, and trying to explain to yourselves why other vendors or other companies failed in solving the problems you're trying to solve. Because usually the case, and this is my investor view, usually the case is that the entrepreneurs have not found a new problem. So if you don't understand why other teams failed in solving the problem you're looking at, there's a good chance you'll fail again. And VCs see that. So they ask for explanations as why is that so? And this is the only way to achieve a viable solution with a good market fit.
Yeah, okay, that's really interesting. And obviously YL Ventures, you know, have got a huge reputation in the cybersecurity industry, and you've now been on the inside of the company and working with them as a partner now on the outside. You know, how do you see their approach as being different from other VC companies out there?
I'm very happy to be working with YL Ventures. I think they support us a lot, and they have an amazing understanding of the security market. The best decision the VC made as a VC that made them special is to focus on a specific market sector. Usually VCs tend to spread the risks between different market sectors and not bet everything on a specific technology or problem, which is cybersecurity for them. Wild Ventures is a cybersecurity seed stage focused VC. And working with a VC that specializes in a specific topic, it helps them to make sure that they invest in the right solutions and the right problems. And it also helps us as a portfolio company to grow using the specialities of the investors. So they have the connections, they have the understanding, and they have the accumulative knowledge of supporting security SaaS startups specifically, and not just companies. So I think the reason Wild Ventures today have an amazing reputation, these two of the portfolio companies that became unicorns only this year, and there are many more in the pipeline. So
yeah,
I think they've made a really good decision focusing on a specific market sector.
Yeah, okay. And so when you jumped out and set up Grip.security, you're there on kind of the first few months of running this. Like, what are your kind of core priorities over the first kind of 5-6 months? Transitioning from an idea to a business. Like, what are the first things you need to get done?
Yeah, there's a real challenge today in recruiting talent. The startup scene is hot. There's a lot of money in the market, a lot of new companies, and all of them are trying to hire the best engineers. So we invested, when founding the company, almost all of our focus in building a great team. And it has paid off amazingly. So I think 90% of what we did when we founded the company was making sure we were bringing in the best people, because the next best people are looking to work with quality technological stars. And now that our team is now about 20 engineers, which is outstanding. But the reason we're able to recruit more engineers is because the atmosphere that we have in Grip and the team that we have is something that is unique even in the Israeli startup market. And people see that when they sit to lunch with us. The rest of our effort are focused at building a great product, which has two prerequisites. The first one is to have a solid tech infrastructure using newest technologies that can scale, making sure we don't waste our time in manually managing every deployment. And the second thing we need to do is to find visionary enterprises that feel the problems that we're trying to solve and wish to be a part of the journey of building a solution to it, because we work with companies that have a problem that we can solve in order to make sure we build a solution that brings value. And if we deployed the product for the first time before it even had a dashboard. So the first company we worked with, we sent them an Excel sheet with all of the data we collected. Not even a designed one, like the ugliest Excel sheet you can imagine. But it had tremendous value, so they liked what we're doing. And now, 3 months later, we have a working dashboard. And back then, if we waited, 3 more weeks even, we've wasted a lot of time, because we learned a lot from this initial deployment. And we changed our vision depending on the things that we saw, the data we collected, and the lesson that we learned. So my recommendation for every startup would be to start working with real customers as early as you can, because this is the only way you can learn what your product should really look like.
Yeah, okay. And you mentioned how important it is, like the atmosphere in your team and how that sets you apart from kind of even other kind of startup companies. So what are the actions you can take as a CEO to kind of foster that and develop it as you grow?
Mm-hmm. First tip is never hire someone who it doesn't bring a good attitude. There are very talented engineers that are not necessarily fun to work with. And when the company is small, that's critical for the business, because in a bigger company, they can fade into the crowd. But when the company is less than 20 employees or less than 50 employees, I don't know that yet, it's important to make sure people feel connected to each other and connected to the product. We are doing a lot of things to make sure that happens. I see every team member in our team as a co-owner of the vision and the company. They joined Grip because they wanted to be a part of an amazing journey, and I think it's my responsibility as a CEO to make sure that they feel and experience what they've came here to experience. We are drastic in that sense. Just as an example, all of our schedules are open, and not only open in the sense that you can look over the calendar to see what meetings I'm having. They're open in the sense that everyone can join any meeting that they see in the calendar. So if an engineer is interested to join the marketing discussion, they're welcome to do it, because it's the marketing of their company, not my company. And if they want to join a deployment call with a customer, they can do it. And it's important for a lot of the engineers to hear customers talk about why they need the product and their experience with it. And I think we've seen the results of that when people come in the morning because they feel it's their company and their product that they're trying to build. And they get excited the same way I do when we see successes, and get disappointed when we fail.
Yeah. And that has a real compounding effect as well, doesn't it, in terms of the whole
outstanding effect.
Yeah. And prior to kind of YL Ventures, like you spent 7 years in the Israeli military before kind of setting out on your career in the corporate world. And obviously that's a very well-worn path. And there are, a number of very successful companies, which have been set up off the back of that similar type of journey. I was kind of interested, what do you feel like the Israeli military teaches you about building a company?
It teaches you a lot about solving hard problems. So what you learn just when you join the military is that it's not okay to say that something is impossible. And if you haven't solved a problem that you're facing, it's only because you haven't tried enough. And coming in with this attitude and working with this attitude that everyone shares for 7 years has a big effect, because when you look at a problem like SaaS security, no one has been able to solve it. The only reason they haven't is because they haven't tried enough. And it means if we try hard enough, we'll solve the problem. That's true for finding a technical solution for a startup, and it's true for every problem that we're facing. Our marketing is not good enough. It only means we haven't tried hard enough. And when there's no fear of, there's fear of failure, but when there's no fear of something being impossible, it makes things actually possible. So without this attitude, many of the challenges we're trying to face would be impossible to reach. But because we know we can do everything if we just won't give up, it allows us as a company to get better and to break our own limits that are actual limits for others. Now, I've worked with a variety of very talented people, leaders, commanders, engineers, developers, researchers, and so on. And I think the community that we have and the network of those people helps a lot in building a security company in Israel. And I'm very glad for that time. I think it was one of the best eras of my career.
Yeah, okay. And this is the first time you've been a CEO. So now you're the one kind of setting the tempo, driving the decisions. How have you found that experience? And what are the the key lessons that you've learned very quickly?
So being a CEO is not as different as I thought it'd be than being a commander. So I used to manage a team of between 10 to 40 soldiers back in the military. And there's a lot of shared experiences in motivating people. Being an entrepreneur is different. My first tip for everyone I meet with is that starting a company is a roller coaster, and it has a very chaotic emotional effect on people, on myself as well. So you're very excited when things are going well, and you're depressed when things fail, even small things like a candidate decided not to join the company. The effect it has on founders is dramatic. And what I learned when we just started the work days, I stayed in bed for 2 hours being depressed.
Yeah.
Even though nothing happened, just because like small things I wanted them to success didn't convert the right way. And what I learned is that if something bad happens, I need to wait 48 hours before I react to it, because chances are there will be a positive, good event that will cheer me up again. And it's not worth the emotional roller coaster of being sad and happy over and over.
Yeah. Just kind of developing that thick skin. Yeah, obviously in recruitment, I know you're playing there, and you very much in this industry, like you develop that kind of thick skin, and just roll with the punches, and if you keep doing the right things, then the right results will happen. Well, it's been really great having you on today, Lior. Obviously aware of your time. If people want to get in touch and discuss Grip.security, what's the best way for them to approach the company?
Yeah, great. So I'm reachable over LinkedIn, Lior Yaari. You can contact us at info@Grip.security, or on the website, there's a learn more or schedule a demo form. Each one of them gets to me. And I'm answering everyone who approaches me, so feel free to do so.
Yeah, perfect. Well, it's been fascinating to learn more about the company, and obviously wish you all the best on the next stage of growth. And it'd be great to have you on in a year or two and kind of see where the company's going to by then.
Yeah. Hopefully we will. Thank you very much, Ben. It was great being here.
Okay, thanks, Lior.
Great.